Hello everybody, welcome back to your second week of isolation algebra. We're going to get started here with some review of a topic we covered in chapter 8, and that's going to be factoring. Now factoring is actually super important. It's one of those skills that we'll be using for a lesson coming up here, but it's also one of those ones that gets used throughout geometry and algebra 1 as well. So let's get started with a start thinking like always. And what I'm going to be asking you is, what is factoring? So what is factoring? Well, let's think about it. We talked about this. We talked about factoring after distributing. And what we said was factoring was anti-distributing, right? Where we're taking things out of the equation, right? We also called it anti-foiling because we were reversing what foiling did. We divide out terms, right? So these are all different ways that we can describe what factoring is. Now, for most of you, we taught two different ways of factoring. We're really just going to be sticking with one. The first one, the simple method, that allows us to do factoring easier, but it has some issues with it. So we're going to go with the foolproof method here. Let's go through the steps for how to factor a quadratic. Remember, chapter 9 is all about quadratics. All a quadratic is something in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. What are our steps for factoring a quadratic? Well, our first step is to multiply a times c. Let's give us an example here. Let's say we are looking at x squared plus 3x plus 2. So we multiply a times c. Remember, this is ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is 1, c is 2. We get that a times c is 2. Our next step, we want to find all the factors of a times c that add up to b. So we're going to find not all, but the factors that add to b. Remember, this is why we call it an ACB chart. So we're looking for the factors of 2 that add up to 3. Remember, if you don't know, we just start going down the list. What do we know? 2 is 2 times 1. 2 plus 1 does give us 3, so those are our factors. What's the next step? Step 3 is to split b into the two factors. So now we had 3x here. We're going to split that up into 2 and 1. So this becomes x squared plus 2x plus 1x plus 3. Step 4, right? We put these into parentheses and we factor from the first two terms and the last two terms. So we put parentheses around each of these, and we say, well, what is both x squared and 2x divisible by? They both have an x that they're divisible by. We can pull out an x, so we pull that out. And when we do that, we're left with x plus 2. What about x plus 3? Well, there's nothing, and remember, when we pull out nothing, we just pull out 1. Oh, excuse me. This should not be 3, this should be 2. So we have pull out an x from the first two terms, we pull out a 1 from the second two terms. Step 5, you want to make sure your two terms in parentheses are the same. So we have x plus 2 and we have x plus 2. We're all good to go with that. Step 6 is going to be pull out the parentheses and combine what's remaining. So step 6 is pull out parentheses and combine the remaining. So we pull out the x plus 2 and the x plus 2. Those become 1x plus 2. Then we pull our x and our plus 1, and those become our other term. We get x plus 2 times x plus 1. What do we do to check our answer? Well, we can FOIL these back in. Make sure that this comes out to be the same thing. So let's do that quickly. If we do that, we get x plus 2 times x plus 1. That term is x squared plus 1x plus 2x plus 2. So that is all good. That is the correct answer. That is x squared plus 3x plus 2. So those were the basic steps. We did that the long way where we split up b. Now there was another way we can do that. I'm not going to be going over that because the rest of the problems we do are not going to be able to be done that way. Let's get working with some harder problems. Let's take a look at a couple more difficult problems. We're going to start with 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. We'll also look at x squared minus 4, and we'll do 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. So 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. We're looking for our a times c so we can make it into b. A times c, right? A and c, so that becomes 2 times negative 3 or negative 6, and we want these to add up to be negative 5. What two terms will do that? Well, let's go through. We try 6 and negative 1, but that gives us positive 5. We notice that's close, but not quite, so we're going to flip that negative. We get 6 and positive 1. That gives us negative 5. Step 2 was to split up b into those two terms. So this becomes 2x squared minus 6x plus x minus 3. Put your terms in parentheses, see what you can pull out. What do 2x squared and minus 6x have in common? Well, 2 and negative 6 are both divisible by 2, and we have an x in both of these, so we're going to pull out a 2x. We divide that out, so 2x squared divided by 2x, we're left with just x. Negative 6x divided by 2x gives minus 3. And then what can we pull out from x and minus 3? Just a 1. So this becomes 2x times x minus 3 plus 1 times x minus 3. Our two terms in parentheses are the same. So we're good. We're going to move on to the next step. We pull these two terms to make them into 1, and we pull whatever's left over, the 2x and the plus 1. So our answer is x minus 3, 2x plus 1. Okay, for problem 2, we're looking at x squared minus 4. Remember, this is the same thing as x squared plus 0x minus 4. So what are we doing? Well, we're looking for the factors of a, which is 1, times c. So we're looking for the factors of minus 4 that add up to be 0. So we look at 4 and minus 1. That's not going to get us close, though. So what other factors do we have? We have minus 2 and positive 2. Those add up to 0. So let's put those in. We have x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 4. Put those in parentheses. We pull out an x from that first term. So what are we left with? Well, that's x minus 2. Both these terms are divisible by 2, so we're going to pull that out. We get x minus 2. Now we combine those two terms in parentheses, and we take whatever's left over. So remember, if you don't have a b value, if you just have something like x squared minus 4, we have to make sure we have that 0x. All right, so this is our answer for 2. This is our answer for 1. Let's take a look at problem 3. we have 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. So we're looking at factors for a times c, which is going to be 20, that add up to 12. So we can try those out. We try 20 and 1, but that's 21. Let's divide by 2. So we try 10 and 2. That does come out to 12, so we're all good. I'm going to do this one down here. We're going to split this up. So we get 4x squared plus 10x plus 2x plus 5. Put those in parentheses. What can we pull out of this? Well, they both have that x, but we have a 4 and 10. Both of those are divisible by 2 at the largest. And what are we left with? 2x plus 5. What do we have here? Well, we can't divide x out, and 2 and 5 are not divisible by the same things except for by 1. We combine our front two terms. This becomes 2x plus 5, and we get our next one, which remains 2x plus 1. So, remember your factoring. Remember, you can be left with something attached to a. It really just depends on the problem. So that's all we have for the review of factoring. We're going to get you started with some practice problems now. Remember, it is super important for you to do these practice problems, for you to actually stop and do the practice problems. Your homework is being graded off of whether or not you get it correct. So this is your chance to practice, make sure you understand what's going, and to ask me any questions you have. So we have 4 practice problems. The first one, I want you to factor x squared plus 5x plus 6. Next one, you're going to factor 3x squared minus 4x minus 4. Third one is going to be x squared minus 49. And we'll do the fourth one down here. Fourth one is going to be 2x squared plus 5x. So take the time now, pause the video, do these, and come back to me when you're done. I mean it. Pause the videos. Get working on these. All right, let's get going with this first one. We're looking for a times c. We're making our ACB chart. A times c is going to be 6. We're looking for factors of 6 that add up to 5. We test them out until we get to 2 times 3, which multiplies to make 6 but adds together to make 5. We split our b term up into 2x and 3x. Throw some parentheses around. You can pull an x out of that, and you're left with x plus 2. 3x and 6 are both divisible by 3, and we're left with x plus 2. Two terms are the same, meaning we're good to go. We combine those first 2 terms, and we combine the next 2, or what remains. There's your answer. For this next one, do the same thing. A times c, 3 times negative 4. We're looking for factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 4. And we keep running through this list. We try 12 and negative 1, won't work. We try 6 and 2. And we see that if we have negative 6 and positive 2, those will add up to negative 4. So we split this up. We get 3x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 4. And we do this, we see that we can pull a 3x out from that. We're left with x minus 2. And we can pull out a 2 from the other one. We're left with x minus 2. Our 2 terms are the same, so those combine. We get x minus 2. And we take what's left over. We get 3x plus 2. Problem 3. We have x squared minus 49. That's the same thing as x squared plus 0x minus 49. So we're looking for factors of negative 49 that add up to 0. Well, what's 49 divisible by? 7 and negative 7 adds up to 0. We get x squared plus 7x minus 7x minus 49. Pull out an x from the first set, left with x plus 7. And remember, when we have 2 negative terms, we can pull out that negative. So we pull out a minus 7, and we're left with x plus 7. If we didn't do that, Let's do that quickly. We'd be left with plus 7, x minus 7. Our two terms would not be the same. So we have to make sure our two inside terms are the same. All right, we make sure they're the same, and then we combine them. We get x plus 7 times x minus 7. To do this last one here, we have 2x squared plus 5x. So we're looking for factors of 0 that add up to be 5, right? 2 times what c is 0. So remember, we don't do these this way. What we instead do is we look for the common terms here. What can we pull out? Well, both the terms have an x, and we're left with 2x plus 5. That's all for the review. Now go ahead and get going on the homework.